this grandfather clock face on eBay for £17, and I was particularly interested in it in terms of its history, because I saw at the bottom it had Leith and a maker, Robert Alexander. Coming from Edinburgh, Leith is a port that used to be a separate part of Edinburgh, but a number of years ago was brought into Edinburgh district, and now is the fishing port within Edinburgh as opposed to an individual town or village of its own. So engraved with dolphins and clamshells, and the question was, is it genuine? When I looked at it, I thought, yeah, it has to be. Who would copy this? And looking at some of the details, the crackling in the paint here, I think that it is genuine. On eBay I got in touch with those selling it and asked if they knew any history about it, and they said it came from a grandfather clock that was broken up and had been lying in a garage for a while. So as far as the history of this is concerned, they dated that to 1880. So I thought that was fairly good provenance on this. It piqued my interest, so I went online and was able to find a book on old Scottish clockmakers from 1453 to 1850, and I got this second hand because I was interested, only for, I think it was £9 with free postage, which was good for this book. So turning to the name Robert Alexander, I can see that there is an entry. I can find it. Alexander John in Edinburgh, Alexander Robert in Edinburgh, and it appears that he was a clockmaker in Leith, clock and watchmaker in Leith, and in fact there's a family of them. There's Alexander Robert, Edinburgh 1708 to 18, and he was the son to the Alexander John that I mentioned, 1667 to 1707. And then there's this final one, Alexander Robert Leith, 1751 to 1825, Tolbooth Wynd and Shore, Leith. And there were apparently three generations of this name, all pointing towards it being the same family. So I think that gives me enough to show that this Robert Alexander Leith engraved is one and the same as is stated in the book. On the basis of that, I decided to create a housing or a body that I could attach this to and make a working clock out of it, or sorry, I should say timepiece. I don't intend to have any mechanical movement or any striking or chiming apparatus behind it. I intend to just place a quartz movement, long hands, high torque movement to drive the long hands, and to mount it onto a board, and then either think of making it as a mantle clock, or in fact raise it higher, not with a body, but put it onto a tripod, an old wooden tripod, in a similar way that a lot of people have treated theatre lights. So on that basis, I then started to see what proprietary bits and pieces I could get to help me make this. So putting the book to the side, these are the component parts that I have bought. Firstly, as the back, got a chopping block made of oak, 40mm thick, to the dimensions 350 by 500mm, so that I can place the clock on here. That will form the main body of it. Looking around for some inspiration, I saw this chopping block for laying a baguette of bread on, and it was 350 by, I can't remember, a couple of 100mm across, and it's cut out in an OG shape both sides, and I thought that would make a good base. It's about 15mm thick, again in oak. This was about £9, so placing that there, fitting the back to it, I get the basis of the clock. In order to position it perhaps on a tripod, I came up with the idea, and so as I could rotate it easy, of again 2 proprietary discs from eBay. I think these are about £4 each. A lazy Susan bearing. I'll show this on the assembly to show how easily it works. With the centralising the bearing on there, then with that just put that on there. Without any effort, I will be able to rotate the clock in any direction, the clock face. It's my intention to stain this oak a medium to dark oak, nice, bring it up to a nice finish, and put the clock face on the front. I wanted also to add a touch of detail, so I had a little bit of a scotia beading in pine, so I just made up a little section just to place on here to see as a trim at the top. I'm actually not sure if this will be in the camera, but that will in essence be the body. I wanted to make it more than just a blank face, and I had a long time ago bought this little brass cherub figure, and I thought if I mount this up here it'll be quite interesting, but I needed to do more to it than that, because the clock face on its own just didn't quite do it. So I took a piece of that foam board. This is only a piece about 5mm thick, and with a Stanley knife I cut out a few pieces and stuck them together and came up, essentially, these are the 3 pieces here, 3 pieces. I thought, follow the shape of the clock here and put that on. So to trial it out, I then fixed that on there, and taking the clock face, let's see if I can get it up there, taking the clock face, putting it into there, I thought that looked better. And on top of that, if I mount, got something to stop that falling out, if I mount the Cupid, I actually put some pins in here, but when I took it apart, the pins are actually behind, so let's see if I can get that to go better. Yeah, in essence it's like that. So that there. So that, and that is the top, will form the basis of the clock. So putting it all together, this will be fairly straightforward, and as you can see, it more or less balances all right on its own. So there shouldn't be an awful lot of effort in that. The top piece is going to be cut out of a piece of oak that again I bought on eBay online. So that equates to the same thickness of the foam board that I've got on front, more or less. So that will be cut to give that. The base, I got 19mm square oak. That will form the base, and the two members up to that line there. So that's, I'll get all that from the one piece. And finally, rather than put the pine moulding, I bought a squisher moulding that will go cut to match this angle across, mitered across and back to square back. Presently I've just held it together with a brass clip I made just to hold everything in place while I modelled it out. So the clock movement will fit into the board, and I will use a Forstner bit to recess the board. First I thought about drilling it all the way through and putting a brass cover plate on, but I got this thick enough so as I could cut into it so that I can keep the back of the board and bring out this nice colouring and grain. Unfortunately, I had hoped that I would be able to get the second hand here with a separate movement, quartz movement, to turn this round while this would turn the main hands. But the hole centre between here and here is too small, and the smallest sort of quartz movement is 50mm square. But the high torque ones tend to be more 57mm, and the distance between centres is only 48. So no matter how I do it, I'm not going to be able to have two movements straight on. I could try and put little gears and whatever, but that's just going to be far too much work. So you will see the, the basic clock with the hands on it. And I found a way to attach this to the board, this clock face, so that I can easily pull the face off and the movement to replace the battery without having to drill a hole all the way through. I've got a plan for that, and I just need to get a couple of screw components that you would normally use to hold the mirror on. They've got a little brass cap, and so I'll have two screws in here with little brass caps that will screw into the recess on the screw head and just clamp this into place. So that's the project. Bit different to the last one I did, which was that I put online, which was the Land Rover. But I have had an interest in these things, clocks and that recently, so that in essence is the plan for this particular clock. Just putting a chamfer on this edge, 45 degrees, this plane. This board came with a chamfer just in one edge. It's meant to be chamfered round one side, but it just had an edge. So to match it, I'm just putting a similar chamfer down this edge. I'll just plane it, then give it a little sanding once I get it down to the same chamfer width as the other side. Here I'm just going to mark on the thickness of the side pieces, 19mm. Line those up with the edge. Yeah. So, and at the bottom. I could really push that up against the same edge, against something flat, and go better. But that's all. Yeah, I'm comfortable with it there. Mark the clock centre, just there. Then by eye, I'll just pick out the very biggest, the centre of that circle. So it's going to be far away. I know the clock movement is 57mm square, so if I scribe on an arc at 30mm radius, it's 60 diameter, so if I was to draw a square across that, that would match it more or less size for size. I need to put a little bit of clearance around it. I'm going to put, say, 5mm on it. So I'll then go up to 35. This is the cutter I intend to use, which is a Fosner bit, 40mm, leading cutter here with the edges across each of those faces here. It looks relatively sharp, so I'm not having to do anything with it. Soon see how it cuts. Let's see what happens. Try and apart from the fact that the router spun out here and didn't cut down as cleanly, it seemed to drift towards this open area. It's okay, I thought I might have had the same problem here, but the cutter pulling it to the space, as it did here, but this one was fine. For some reason this one didn't cut very well. I don't know if it was the grain or maybe it was just me, but it's spun out and it's taken a little bit of the finish off there. However, that's all going to be behind the brass plate, but it's learnt some valuable lesson about using these bits. And though these are really clean here and here, I had a problem with this one, don't know why. However, in terms of the distance, I'm down to 20mm, and I think that the actual clock movement is slightly over that. I'm just going to go and check, but the router that I'm going to use to eat out this bit, cut out this here and here, maybe leave the corners a bit radiused in here, I'll square all that up. I'll just put some edges so I can cut the router square across here, then I'll just sand that out a bit. I don't want to leave it like that because I just don't. Even though it's hidden, I'd rather finish it off. But it's quite clean here and here and here. Just don't know what happened to this bit. Now I'm using a miter block to cut these pieces here to length. This one here. So I've marked that on, put it into place. Around here. And cutting it to the slightly to the waist side. Like that. And I have another length up here. So I'm just going to drill a clearance hole in there. That will sit that down onto the tripod and just tighten up. It should be fine. That will go into that. That will go into that. And that will form the underside of the main thing. So just going to now mark these things off and drill and screw them, drill and screw them together. There's it. So now I'll just mark through, and already marked on the position. There, turn it around and just put a little mark in to each hole. Turn that to 45-degree position. There. And I'm going to mark on there. sure it's still in line. Four points. Like that. So that's the 4 holes drilled that will allow me to pass the screws down to come through here to hold on to there. And at the same time I have to put the nut into place. I'll take this apart again anyway because I have to still attach the main body to that. So I don't like to undo the screws too many times, but I will do in this case just this once to put the main connection on. So now one and this one. Oh. That will allow the clock on the tripod to be easily rotated to the best viewing position. Once that's put on there. So I'm now on to the cutting of the radius of the top board on the clock, and I've made using the rods that came with the router. I've cut a piece of aluminium angle, drilled a hole in it, and as a pivot point, and I've been able to adjust that to suit the radius by quite simply moving it back and forward the nose to get the right radius after. Then it pivots round on this bolt. So hopefully I will be able to cut this and without any problem, to get the radius right, that is. And I've actually screwed the job down onto an old bit of MDF with this backboard, so try and keep the pivot as tight as possible so it doesn't move around. Hopefully I'll get a more even curve that will match the top curve on the clock. So I just need to do a couple more things to secure the other part of the job itself, which once the cut is complete, I'm scared that that works itself free and it could have a kick from the cutter and drag it in. I don't know if that will happen or not because I've not really used a router before, so this is the first time. So I'm taking 1 or 2 extra precautions, so I'm going to do that now. think you can see how clean that is. I had screwed down the waste material and blocked up the rest so that couldn't move around, and what I've got from that is a very clean cut, both front and back, which I'm very pleased with. Nice and straight, nice finish on the oak. Now I've just got to see how that fits with the rest of the clock. That's most of the parts. I think all of the parts done now. It's going to be the base for the tripod. I showed how I constructed that one before. Be finished. Sections. The part of router down there. It's the face. Clock movement. And the routered backboard. Take that in there. These holes are just to allow the other holes in the face to have a gap behind them rather than just show the wood. Basic face. I've got to think about how I'll finish it off. The base. To stop the dial from falling out, using these mirror screws with a brass cap. It's got a screw hole in the end of it that the brass cap just screws into. So my intention is, and they're flat enough to be underneath the minute hand. My intention is they fit through the hole, screwed into the wood. That is larger diameter than the actual hole in the face, and when these screw in, they will just in fact hold that back. So when I need to get into the movement, I just unscrew that. That'll come off with the clock movement behind it, and hold it all together. Well, this is at the stage where I've finished off the boards and the pieces before I assemble them all together. I used a stain that I had a difficulty in choosing. However, a stain that I have, and in these cases of the uprights and the base, I've left a couple of sides unstained so that I can use an adhesive to stick them to the board here. Because I had heard that it didn't stick well to this type of finish. So that is the concealed part of the board. Just turn this round. You can see the back. Whether the grain turns up in this or not, I'm not sure what the camera can pick up. It's a satin finish there. The various component pieces all finished off to go together. Finished off the back of the cherub in a brass paint, so that from the rear is covered in, and it's more or less just a case now of pulling it all together. Then once it's together, I think I will go over and give a final coat of high performance top coat by General Finishes, because the stain, after much selection choice, or the difficulty in the selection choice, was in finding a stain that would do what I wanted it to do. From the offcuts off the boards, I stained up in various finishes here, but I didn't like a lot of what the stains appeared to do, which was this zebra effect with the grain. It wasn't what I wanted. It was too small an area to have this zebra finish across here. And on the darker oil finish, again, I've got more raised grain than I wanted, so I wasn't taken by that. And again here, different finish, stain, and this one was nicer, was more wood, and you could see the bleed through of the lighter undercolour. That created quite a nice effect, but after a week I saw this was fading. Now, I could have maybe put more coats on that, but again, I wasn't sure I liked it, and so, having gone online, I decided on a gel stain, which is this gel stain Java, which is more like a paint. It's got lots of pigments in it, but it's got a urethane that finishes it off with a harder coat. So what I have done is coated this with gel stain using foam brushes, 2 coats, and then one final, because I didn't want to darken the colour anymore, one final coat of this general finish high performance on top. So I think its finish is nice. You can see the grain through it quite clearly, which is good, but the colour, yeah, I accept it. It's where I am now. It's more chocolatey, dark chocolate than I had hoped for. I did want it to have more of a look of that, but it was difficult in choosing the right stain. So here it is, the finished item. See why I had it on this rotating base, because the legs are fixed. It's not easy to move them round in the space, because it's far easier to move the clock face and rotate it. I added a little light here from IKEA, just helps illuminate it, and with the other spotlight that I've had there, which I made about 5 years ago, it was a rough cast body, and I basically cleaned it all up, then buffed it down with a drill with a pad and head on it to polish up the casing, and then I inserted a copper reflective box inside that one. And this, I had another lamp here that I did, but I decided to put something else to replace it. The hands, the long hands, I was able to buy on eBay, and there's the little caps that have retained the board in place. I could actually scribe and colour in the lettering, but I haven't bothered as yet, and I'm not sure I will. So Robert Alexander Leith has now got a place in my home, and of course Quartz Movement, it keeps good time.